In this episode of the Gut Gang podcast, I sat down with the father of biohacking. That's right, this living legend right here, Dave Asprey. In fact, his name is in Webster's dictionary for coining the term biohacking. He is the founder of Bulletproof, which he's no longer affiliated with now. Now he's a part of Danger Coffee. He is a multiple international times best-selling author. Here are just a few of them. There's Smarter, Not Harder. There's Fast This Way. And then there's Superhuman. He has transformed personal health struggles into a mission where he wants to convey his message to the world. He used to be a vegan. He used to be over 300 pounds. He was overweight. And now he's just this specimen of a human being. He is the early adopter of self-exploration and experimentation on himself. He's tried millions and millions and millions, or he's invested so much into science and technology and things to essentially biohack his brain, his body, to improve longevity and health and optimization. And his mission is to share it with his community and the world. And he really has left an incredible footprint on humanity already. And he's just getting started almost. He is a big time advocate for longevity. He is the host of the world's largest biohacking conference in the States. I'm coming slowly behind him with the Canadian Biohacking Conference. This one's coming up in August in Burlington. And he is the host of the Human Upgrade podcast, amazing podcast. Strongly recommend you go subscribe to that. And this interview I hold very near and dear to my heart, and I'm going to explain why. Well, in one hand, I was invited to his Canadian franchise, Upgrade Labs, where I was able to interview him in person in front of a live audience, talking about his franchise, where they have right behind is a cryogenic chamber. They've got these incredible lymphatic drainage devices. They've got very, very smart technology, how to exercise and how to work smarter, not harder. Incredible technology. And I hosted a biohacking expo in January of 2024, and Upgrade Labs was one of the largest sponsors. So that's the relationship. And it's so cool that I was invited to his facility and interview him in person. And that's what I'm going to talk about today, or that's what you're going to hear today. But also, if you've been following me for a long time, you know Simba. Simba is my last of 3 Pomeranians, and she was my sidekick. She went everywhere. And here in the picture, if you can see it, she's laying down right there. This was her last day. And in one hand, here I am being able to create this relationship and forge something that can really turn into something beautiful. And I really hope that it does. I'm sure that it will. But at the same time, I had to say farewell to my best friend, my companion. And we knew that she was slowing down. And I'm not going to make this all about her, but we brought her to the podcast. We brought her. My mom was with her the whole time. And the moment we started shooting, we started to record. My mom brought her in and she laid her down. There it is right there by the chair. She got up and she laid down and she watched the entire podcast. And then right when Dave and I finished, I went right to her. I picked her up. I said, Dave, this is my little girl. She's on her last hours. And it's just so cool that I get to share her with you and everyone here. And he went right to her and he started petting her and he really gave her, you could see his heart. And the whole world stopped. And Dave just really gave attention to Simba. And it was just so beautiful. And they connected. And he said, Brendan, go outside on the grass. Go let her get grounded. Let her calm down. And so we went right outside to the ground. And that's where I held her in my lap. And she took some of her final breaths. And then ultimately she passed away. And it was an incredible, beautiful message that she conveyed to me. And what an experience. So this podcast, I'm going to remember this for the rest of my life. I get to interview Dave Asprey, the grandfather of biohacking, but also had to say farewell to my best friend. In this podcast, we sat down and we discussed biohacking, longevity, what it means to ultimately biohack, what his mission is, why biohacking, in my opinion, it's still sort of, we're part of a fringe minority in a way. Not a lot of people know what biohacking is. And yet We are at the absolute pinnacle of awareness, and people are really understanding, and they're going towards this, and people want to live longer. They want to be healthier. They want to learn how to optimize. And so this podcast, we really go into that. We talk about even semen retention. We talk about hormone therapy. We talk about brain health. We talk about diet and seed oils and all sorts of incredible things. It's an 1.5-hour interview. What a blessing. What a real treat to sit down with this incredible human being. He's got such a massive testimonial and life change. Again, he was that guy that was 300 pounds overweight, and he was all plant-based. And so if you look at him now, you're going to see the video, you're going to listen to him. He changed his whole life around. And one of the biggest messages with that is, wherever you are, where you're listening or you're watching, wherever you are in your life, if you are maybe behind the 8 ball, or you feel as though that you're not happy where you want to be, but you don't feel as though that you don't know where you can go or what decisions you can make to push the needle forward to excel your health, he did it. And we talk about some very basic principles that you can apply into your life right now. So with all that being said, I truly hope that you enjoy this interview. I certainly did. And just know that every moment listening to this podcast, Simba was there listening and watching the whole time. So you're in good company. I really hope you enjoy this podcast. Master.
Sweet.
Right there. All right.
I can do that.
Dave Asprey, thanks for doing this. This is exciting. So Brennan here, Gut Gang Podcast, and we are live in Oakville at Upgrade Labs. And this is quite the exciting podcast. This is a live audience, live studio audio podcast. And Dave Asprey, I'm not going to do the formal introduction. I'll do that in the post-production because you've heard your introduction so many times. You are arguably the grandfather or the father of biohacking. And I still say that you've got a big sort of uphill challenge because we're still kind of part of a small fringe minority.
You really feel that way? Here's some interesting data.
Simba says hi.
Oh, and this is Simba. She's on her last couple days.
She's not even on her last legs because she wouldn't stand.
Yeah.
Oh,
So she comes everywhere with me.
yeah, that's amazing. Pets are so good.
Okay, so I still say small fringe a little bit.
Here's some interesting facts about, let's see, 2011, I wrote the first post about biohacking and created the definition. It took until 2018 for Webster's to add it to the English language as a new word.
Right.
My name's in the dictionary, which is kind of cool. I started the first conference back then in 2011. And I've been running a biohacking conference every year. We had 3,200 people at this one and people from all over the globe. And biohacking, according to industry analysts, is a $63 billion industry. And part of biohacking has been the longevity movement. And I've been in that for longer than there's been biohacking.
Yeah.
We're investing $600 billion a year in longevity, which has never happened in recorded history.
Mm-hmm.
So it's starting to not sound very fringe.
Now, of those dollars being spent, is it a mass populace or is it still a small percentage of people? And that's why I'm saying that it's still kind of a small fringe in a way.
It was a small fringe 7 or 8 years ago.
Yeah.
But I sold 600,000 copies of the Bulletproof Diet in Japan. I just wrote the foreword for LA Biohacker, not Los Angeles, Latin America in the Spanish language. There's millions of people in the Spanish language. I go to Dubai, my books are on the shelves, and I meet with large groups of people there. And it's the same in Singapore and Korea. Like, this is a global movement. It's not as small as people think.
Yeah.
And it's always been 60% women, sometimes 55%, depending on the channel.
Okay.
Right. So this isn't like for rich white bros. And there are people who like to say that. I think they're just angry people because this is for all of us.
Yeah.
As a former 300-pound computer hacker, I've been in Vogue magazine. Like, what are, of all the things that would be unlikely, that's probably more unlikely than being in Men's Fitness with my shirt off, which has also happened.
Sure.
You see my stretch marks and my abs.
Yeah.
So at this point, I think we've crossed out of fringe where a lot of people, probably, I'm going to say 40% of people in the US have heard of biohacking. They don't always know what it is.
Yeah.
But do you know how big that is? Like, we've crossed the chasm of being a fringe, where it's a growing movement, and it reflects itself in the language that you hear.
Mm-hmm.
So when you read magazines that say, take control of your health, hack your biology, upgrade yourself, those are Dave Asprey original biohacking terms that penetrated our consciousness, where, oh, you mean I'm in charge of this? If you go back 15 years, stuff just happens to my body, and if something's wrong, I go to the doctor.
Yeah.
So biohackers are breaking the pharmaceutical monopoly, and we're not doing it through the stuff that I did when I was, say, a vegan, which was profoundly bad for you. And I decided something was supposed to work, and then I kept doing it. Another thing I did, I went to the gym when I weighed 300 pounds. I'm going to lose the weight no matter what. So 6 days a week, 90 minutes a day ought to be enough, right? Half weights, half cardio.
Right.
I did it for 18 months straight. I did not lose 1 inch off my 46-inch pant size.
Now, this was when you were vegan still, correct?
I was at that time, that was actually before I tried being vegan, but I was on a low-fat, low-calorie diet while I was exercising. I was so tired and hungry all the time.
Yeah.
I probably made my thyroid go off from doing that. Like, that's not a good...
You were also on a major quest in your tech development and your business that way, right? And I wanted to talk about that because there's such a big percentage of individuals that have allocated so much time perfecting their craft, not necessarily in health, right? But they've become uber successful. But this is where biohacking is becoming more attractive, because these are people that are on their path, they're on their why, and they want to live longer for that. And I wanted to ask you, what about the people that aren't on their why, that haven't found their highest value? Biohacking isn't really attractive to them. That's why I'm saying that there's still kind of a small percentage, right? What do you think about that?
I go down to subcellular biology to answer that question.
Let's do it.
So inside your cells are these ancient bacteria called mitochondria. And we like to say they're the power plants of the cells we harnessed 2 billion years ago, blah, blah, blah. The reality is they took over our cells. Like, hey, look, a mobile petri dish. Let's take over. And they never stop being in charge of us.
Right.
So a huge amount of our behavior, even the way we sense the world, is controlled by ancient bacteria.
Yep.
So what do they really care about? They care about not getting eaten.
Yes.
They care about not starving. So there's fear, there's food. They care about reproduction. There's the other F word.
Yep.
Right. And they care about supporting their community and their environment, which is friends. Those are 4 things. Well, what do we care about most? Let's see, power and sex.
Yeah.
Because power, make sure you have enough food and that nothing eats you.
Yep.
So these are the primary drivers of all marketing. So you talk to someone who doesn't have a why for biohacking. Do you not want to die? That would be one thing. Do you not want to suffer? That's another thing.
Yeah.
Do you want to be nicer to your kids? Right? And everyone is afraid of aging, because losing bodily autonomy is terrifying. A lot of people learn that because for a brief period, we lost bodily autonomy to the government over the past few years. And that didn't go well for the government, because humans can't live under those conditions.
Right.
So we don't want to lose that, and it's precious. So I can talk to someone who doesn't know what biohacking is and say, do you want more energy? Do you want to like how you look in the mirror?
Yep.
Do you want a libido back?
Mm-hmm.
And like, I'm all in. And they don't have to have a mission.
Yeah.
Right? In fact, the first biohackers, when I started this, hedge fund managers flew me around the world to teach them how to make themselves smarter. That was actually my seed capital when I was starting Bulletproof.
So they can essentially use that knowledge into their business and just become profitable.
Make their brains work better.
Of course.
And so these guys weren't in it for a why. They're, how do I be smarter and more focused?
Yep.
Right? How do I get an advantage?
Yeah.
Right? And then it was, strangely, the tech entrepreneurs, because I was writing for people like me. And then it was Hollywood, and it was music artists. I've been backstage with Third Eye Blind and even Roger Waters and Pink Floyd, because they're all doing it because they want an energy on stage.
Yeah.
So the people who need to look good and have working brains
Yep.
are the people who adopted this first. But it turns out your mom wants to look good and have a working brain too.
Of course.
And there's a huge number of people who are just normal people who are saying, you know what? I'm tired of feeling like shit.
Yeah.
And they'll do anything for it. I don't think that's French. They used to just think it was inevitable.
Yeah.
And the language of biohacking has said, no, you can do something about it. And it's not just getting a facelift. It's actually something inside your body so that you love your life. I think that's way more accessible.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just this radical notion that you're in charge and you can change things.
Well, it's also teaching people or providing them a path to give them permission and have claim their identity back, right? Because I think there's, as you just said, like losing their bodily autonomy, that happened. And we saw people in droves who had no problem with that. And there was a smaller percentage of people that objected. So how are you working towards teaching people and sharing people to learn that they can now have permission or give themselves permission to do this?
It goes back to the philosophical stuff around the definition of an inalienable right.
In a which, sorry?
Inalienable rights.
Okay.
And I'm a Canadian and an American, right? And we hold these rights, a whole bunch of other words, to be self-evident. And the reality is, if I told you that you didn't have permission to breathe, you would probably punch me in the face if I tried to stop you from breathing.
Yep.
So if someone says you're not allowed to eat the most nutritious foods for you, the only biological response is to punch them in the face also, but to do it more slowly because it takes longer to starve than it does to not breathe.
Sure.
Right. So the reality is we've always been in charge of feeding ourselves. We've always been in charge of protecting our families.
Yep.
We've always been in charge of taking care of those around us. And the reason things are so crappy sometimes is that our food supply and our environment is to the point that we don't make enough energy. And there's hard numbers on that. 48% of people under age 40 have early onset mitochondrial deficiency. And everyone over age 40 who's not doing an aggressive longevity program, they just make less energy.
Right.
And when you have less energy, you have less willpower. You have less motivation. You have less drive. So you can have these two kinds of peace in the world. One is where there's these profoundly energetic, high vibe people who are choosing to take care of the world and each other because they have the power to do it. And if you try to stop them, they will stop you.
Yeah.
And then the other kind of piece is everyone is so exhausted and tired and locked in little cubicles with their bank accounts frozen by a dictator who shall not be named.
What country are we in right now?
I think Cuba. I'll double down on that one.
Okay. So let's go a little bit nerdy then. How does one increase their mitochondria? Because ultimately it requires and it takes energy to make energy.
Yeah.
But people are walking around so depleted, they don't think that it's possible. They're just like, ugh.
Yeah.
How can they do that?
Well, in my mid-20s, my tech career was taken off. I had chronic fatigue syndrome and fibromyalgia. I was so tired all the time. And I would hide it.
Hold on. To the audience and the viewership and the listenership, please pay attention to this because this is going to be a powerful nugget, I guarantee, for people with chronic fatigue.
Well,
okay.
Half the people with chronic fatigue don't even know it. They just think they're tired all the time.
Yeah, that's their accepted baseline.
That was my state. It was when it got so bad that I'm like, I would fire myself because I can't remember anything. Like this is not good. It was.
That's a powerful statement. I would fire myself.
Yeah. I remember going home going, I hope I can still pay rent because my brain is jacked. And I went to the doctor. I was like, I feel like someone's poisoned me. It doesn't work. It's like, maybe you should lose weight. I'm like, how? Maybe you should eat healthy. And instead of going to the gym all the time and I'm doing this. And he looked at me like, liar. And when he told me vitamin C would kill me, I fired him. And I also said, how come you're fat? If your advice is so good, like what's going on with that? It wasn't like an angry thing, but it was like, and he goes, oh, I don't follow my advice, but if you do, you'll lose weight.
Oh my God.
Because no one can do that. Right. And like, oh, if you want to lose weight, just levitate. You're like, well, I don't know how to levitate. Well, it doesn't matter. If you just do it, it's this fanciful thinking. Right. So anyhow, you're asking some kind of a question about mitochondria there. So how do we get our energy back?
Yeah.
Well, every day you take 30 pounds of air and some amount of food, and you combine them to make electricity, heat, sex hormones, and all the other things that powers your life.
Right.
Sometimes you can do it with supplements. one of the easiest things that's more challenging up here in Canada is getting control of your circadian biology. It turns out ancient bacteria floating around in the ocean, they need to know what time of day it is so they know what to do. So they look at the angle and color of sunlight.
Right.
They look at the temperature and look at how much food there is. And when you have lights directly overhead that are bright white, you have the warmest temperature and the most food, that must be noon. And
Right.
then when it gets dark and a little bit colder and there's no food, that must be dark.
Yeah.
And they go into their nightly repair process.
Right.
Well, if you eat dinner earlier and go to bed a little earlier, at least 3 hours between dinner and bed, the quality of sleep per hour will go up dramatically. And I've been monitoring my sleep now for almost 17 years. I used to sleep with a headband that was not Victoria's Secret approved, let's say, but it's because I was such a bad sleeper.
Mm-hmm.
And when you fix your sleep, your mitochondria can come back online. So it's dark enough here in Canada. What that means is at night, you need dimmer switches. You should not have bright white LED lights on in your house
Right.
after the sun goes down. And it may go down at 4:30 like it does for me on Vancouver Island. And at that point, you have dim lights, more candlelight intensity versus these spotlights. Just doing that will radically transform your blood sugar response. The other thing you do to fix your mitochondria, it isn't an overnight fix. You might have heard of rapeseed oil.
I'm so glad you mentioned that because I want to let you continue, but I do want to tie that into hormone replacement therapy.
Okay.
And using that as obviously like the binder, the main compound. So continue and I'll remember that.
I love that we're going to get to talk about that. So rapeseed is the non-politically correct name for canola oil.
Right.
And it's called canola oil, Canada oil. So that's where it came from.
Okay.
So we have canola, soy, corn, safflower, sunflower, all the seed oils.
Yep.
They're unlike the kinds of fats in our body. And in one of my books, I published research about where those fats go when you eat them in the body. And it turns out your white fat, so your love handles, and your brain are the two areas that are most susceptible to taking up these unnatural oils.
Right.
So if you're eating those on a regular basis, like most people who eat processed foods who just don't know better, the half-life of those in your cell membranes is about 2 years.
Jesus.
Yeah. And people say, how can that be? Guys, one little capsule of fish oil has all these health effects, right? Why wouldn't one little capsule of oxidized seed oils have the same effect? But you're eating French fries soaked in this stuff.
Well, and all of the store shelves are jam-packed with those seed oils.
It's crazy because the membranes in your cells are made of tiny droplets of oil. And your mitochondrial membrane, where you make energy of life, is also made of tiny droplets of oil.
Right.
If you poison it with oils that don't work very well, your body will still make mitochondria. They're just sucky ones. Mm-hmm. It's like you buy the really cheap like flea market batteries, or you buy the Duracells.
Right.
The same size and shape. One of them holds a charge better than the other, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
This is going on in your cells. So the thing is, if you were to swap out your bad oils for butter and animal fats, some coconut oil, but not only coconut oil.
Sure.
And I mean do it in a meaningful fashion. I don't mean just, every weekend I eat the fried stuff.
Yeah.
It takes a little while, but you start to feel clarity. Your sex hormones improve. Mm-hmm. Your skin improves. You have less inflammation. And 2 years later, you stop craving those fats as much.
Yeah.
And this is the path of bulletproof. Tens of millions of people have put butter in their coffee because of me. People have lost millions of pounds on the Bulletproof diet. I'm not with Bulletproof at all anymore. I run Danger Coffee as my new coffee company. But what I found universally, people start doing this thing, and you have to blend it in the coffee. Today I blend my butter in my Danger Coffee, but when you blend it in, it changes the water so that your cells can use it to make energy more effectively, and it gives you the fats that are building blocks of sex hormones and healthy cells. Mm-hmm. So swap out bad fats for natural animal fats, the kinds we've always eaten. And the further north you are, the more you need to do that.
Yeah. Well,
that means in Canada, we need to be eating pretty much all butter and steak and some fish.
We've been taught, though, and this is where I'll play sort of devil's advocate in a way, but we've been taught and we've been conditioned to believe the people in the white coats. And that's another big challenge because This is people still think that holistic and Ayurvedic and naturopathic practitioners and doctors and professionals, it's getting better in the States, but Canada is still a couple steps behind with this. But it's so great that you're here, and this is why the knowledge is so powerful, because it is spreading.
Well, the people in the white coats, if their advice was working, I don't think the last 3 or 4 years would have been like they were.
Right.
And not only that, the last 30 years when obesity and chronic disease has gone through the roof, we've spent literally over that time $1 trillion between the US and Canada on this stuff with zero
research and all of these new things. Yeah, of course.
And we all know whose pockets that went into. It wasn't ours.
No, absolutely not.
We could have bought a house for everyone in Canada with the kind of money they spent, not making us healthier.
Yep.
So actually, we probably couldn't have, because houses in Canada are so expensive.
Oh my God.
Anyway, I digress. And food.
Okay, let's talk about I want to talk about TRT, hormone replacement therapy. Talk about what an amazing podcast that was on yours a couple episodes ago, where you were discussing with two guys, I forget their names, about the broccoli and the sulforaphane.
Oh yeah, it's the broccoli guys.
Dave, what a great podcast! I got to go nerdy. You guys really went deep.
Yeah.
Right. I wanted to ask you. I'm gonna take a different track, but we'll go back to the hormones. I wanted to ask you, in terms of plant chemicals and lectins and sulforaphane and all those things, some people believe that those are natural antioxidants. I'm wondering, and I heard this, I can't remember where I heard it, but is it plausible that these antioxidants in the plants are actually their defense chemicals, like lectins and oxalates and so forth? And when we consume them, they induce our production and secretion of glutathione, making them an antioxidant? Or are some of these compounds true in nature antioxidants?
It's a mix of both. Every compound that you find in a plant is either for protection, energy production, or reproduction.
Okay.
So what that means is the energy production and storage is primarily starch and sugar. Those are pretty darn free of toxins if they're pure starch or pure sugar. Unfortunately, they raise your blood sugar a lot. So
right.
That. And then what's left? Well, plant proteins are not there as a food source. They are there as infrastructure and mostly for reproduction.
Sure.
Since plants can't run away, they have roots. The only defense they have, remember I talked about how all life wants to do that, don't eat me and eat everything?
Yeah, wants to survive, of course, sure.
So they cover themselves with barbs and spines, and they cover especially their young ones in toxic chemicals so animals won't eat them.
Yeah.
Because if you eat too many of those plants, you won't have babies. Like that's how Mother Nature keeps balance, right?
Yeah.
Otherwise there'd be no plants, right? So caffeine. I have caffeine tattooed right here on my arm.
Great pipes, by the way.
Why, thank you. I like to think this Upgrade Labs stuff works.
We're definitely going to be talking about that. Absolutely. So hang tight for the rest of the audience.
So it's crazy, but caffeine is to stop insects. And anyone who says, oh, plant protein is good for you or it's natural, sarin nerve gas comes from beans. It's a plant protein. I don't think you want to be around that. And snake venom isn't really on my menu either. It's an animal protein. So you have to look at what do these each chemical do individually.
Yeah.
Most plants are useful medicinally, and nutritionally you can get by during a famine. That's why humans are around, because when there's not enough animal food, we can eat a bunch of junky carbs.
Yeah.
They'll keep us alive, but they clog up our system.
Right.
And I'm not an anti-carb person. I'm not in ketosis all the time. I use ketosis as a cyclical tool.
Yeah.
And I primarily eat herbs because they have the most beneficial compounds. Some of them are direct antioxidants, and most of them in studies are actually prebiotics that feed your gut bacteria and change what they do. In fact, most pharmaceuticals now we're discovering just change your gut bacteria. When they're metabolized, that's what changes things.
Oh, the compounds in these pharmaceuticals, they're just altering the microbiome, and then by default, the body's changes and systems change.
Well, the microbiome processes them into something different than what they were, and they alter the microbiome. Like metformin, one of the reasons it works is its effect on your gut bacteria.
Right.
And what the gut bacteria do to the metformin. So there's this really complex system that's going on there. And our job as biohackers is to not believe that we know everything about that system. We don't.
Yep.
What we can do is we can say, well, if this works, then my numbers will change. So my commitment, and this is an answer to your question, when I went to the gym for 18 months and didn't lose a pound, at first I thought it's a moral failing from not trying hard enough and eating too much lettuce because there's nothing else left. And I was sitting at a Carl's Jr., it's like Tim Hortons,
Okay.
but with barbecue sauce and onion rings. Anyhow, I'm there with a bunch of friends.
That's important because you were that guy.
Oh yeah, I was in college, and I remember looking at my friends. In fact, I was on the phone with a couple of those friends yesterday, and they're all thin.
They're all
thin, and I thought to myself, I work out more than all my friends combined, and I eat less than any of them, and I'm the biggest guy here, and I'm not losing weight. It's not working. It wasn't me. It was that I was following bad advice. And because I believed it would work, I beat myself up in the gym.
Yeah.
So I just made a commitment. I'm only going to do what works.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to observe things. And that gave me permission to say, I'm going to do 10 things that are going to lower my blood sugar, or 10 things to lose weight all at the same time. I don't care if 3 of them were a waste of time or money. All I want to do is lose weight.
Yeah.
And once I'm where I want to be, then I'll stop doing some of that stuff and see what comes back.
Sure.
So the just commitment to myself, I'm going to get results. I'm not going to believe anything. I'm going to test everything, and I'm going to track it.
Mm-hmm.
And that sets you free. And what that led to was the creation of this movement. Now we have millions of people who talk about what works, and it's helped to direct research in universities.
Right.
Where we're now understanding things about mitochondria. You want them to work better? Go in ketosis in winter, which is good in Canada. Ketosis makes mitochondria work better for a little while, and then you go out of it, then you go back in, then you go out of it,
right?
And you'll have much better performance.
This is there's a lot of individuals in the space that are so married to their philosophies, right? The hardcore carnivores, for example, the hardcore vegans, vegetarians, right? They're just so steadfast, and there's no amount of balance. This is why I like Dr. Terry Walls so much. I really like her. I'm sure you know who she is, right?
I actually presented her with her Lifetime Achievement Award.
Oh my goodness.
At JJ Virgin's Mind Share. Yeah, Terry and I have been friends for a long time.
I just like her because she really does have a good balance in the way that she approaches things. And she even has kale once in a while. However, she explains that it can be a good form of a hormetic stress, obviously, if you're optimized. What do you think about that?
I think that cyanide is not a hormetic stressor. Neither is lead, neither is mercury.
Right.
So the idea that if something doesn't kill you makes you stronger is absurd.
Yeah.
Right. You know, getting shot in the shoulder doesn't make you stronger. It doesn't kill you, right?
Right.
So that kind of thinking where we try to boil things down isn't.
So are you saying like all kale has those compounds? What if it's organic from your backyard? And I'm just playing devil's advocate.
Here's 2 things about kale. One is, it is the single vegetable that concentrates thallium, the toxic metal, more than any other vegetable.
Okay.
Do you know about thallium?
I've only heard about it.
Okay. Thallium was called the poisoner's poison. They used to use it in Russia to kill people because it disrupts potassium in cells.
Okay.
Now, it's an unknown metal. What's it doing in our environment? Remember when they took lead out of gasoline?
Sure.
What do you think they put in instead?
Petrol? No.
They put thallium in the gas instead of lead. Lead is a noxious toxin. Thallium's even worse. And we have one plant that's the garbage cleanup plant called kale.
Right.
It's meant to be around the salad to make it look pretty. It is not food.
Yes. Yeah.
That said, if you want to eat a half a kale leaf to make yourself feel better and maybe change some gut bacteria, it's probably not going to work, but you can.
Yeah.
But if you make a regular practice of spinach, kale, and other high oxalate foods, and especially kale high in thallium, there's no argument for doing that. Other than I just believe it's going to be good because the Kale Marketing Association spent $6 million telling me it was going to be good.
Right.
Same thing that Big Tobacco did.
Yeah.
Right.
And is
Big Kale a thing?
Is Big Kale. And just because a society is doing something doesn't mean that it's correct. And that's why you're here. That's why we're having this conversation, because I don't eat kale. I know a ton of people that do. And
here's the deal. I did have like one piece of it that snuck its way into my salad and I didn't die. Right. It's not that it's going to kill you right now, but I will tell you one thing that happened to me because I was a vegan and a raw vegan. I wasn't aware enough of plant compounds.
Right.
When I wrote the Bulletproof Diet, this is 10 years ago now.
Yeah.
The first chapter, you need to watch out for lectins, you need to watch out for oxalates, you need to watch out for phytic acid. These are common things plants use to stop animals from eating them.
Sure.
And the primary mechanism is by causing inflammation or by stealing minerals. But what oxalates do, they don't just steal your minerals, they form razor sharp microscopic crystals that directly damage mitochondria and nerves and the lining of your gut and your skin. And they're behind a huge amount of rheumatoid arthritis and other chronic degenerative aging diseases. And they build up over time in the body.
Yeah.
So right now, there was a recent study of, I don't remember the number of people it was, but it was meaningful. On autopsy, 80% or thereabouts of people had calcium oxalate crystals in their thyroid glands. In other words, we're getting this basically calcification of our tissues, which is a hallmark of aging.
Right.
It's driven by plants.
Yeah.
Right. So maybe some plants are good and some plants are bad.
Sure.
So I eat plants that are lower in oxalates.
Yeah.
One mistake I made, I ate a ton of raspberries. Raspberries and spinach are two of the highest oxalate foods. Beets, super beet. No, beets are very high in this.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And can you eat them? And is it better than starving? Yes. If you eat a high beet diet, even too many sweet potatoes and almonds,
Sure.
this will do the same thing.
Yeah.
If you drink 4 cups of matcha every day, you're upping your dose.
Yeah.
And the lethal dose is 10 grams. And people on green smoothie diets are getting a gram or more a day. And 70% of kidney stones are caused by this compound in plants.
Yeah.
Brandon! Something happens inside us when we get inspired to change ourselves, change our nutrition, our fitness. But we really do need to visualize to see and feel how we want to be. And for that, we need a plan.
No, you need a plan.
I want you
We
to
need
say,
a plan.
We need a plan.
You said
We need a
so
plan.
I don't know.
Brandon Coates is the author of the 30-Day Challenge to a Healthier, Happier, Stronger You. Let Brandon into your lives for just 30 days. It'll be epic, I can promise you. Because for some of you, maybe it is time to bust out of what you are. It's the 30-Day Challenge to a Healthier, Happier, Stronger You. Available direct at BrandonCoates.ca. And go behind the scenes with Brendan for each and every episode of the Gut Gang Podcast. That's available everywhere you get your podcasts. Brandon! I think this podcast is going to be fun, pretty fun, and different than the other podcasts.
Well, and you, this is talking about going full circle. You talked about the decrease or the impaired mitochondrial function, and you just talked about oxalates having a direct impact on mitochondria. Okay, so let's just do an assessment of your life. If you're really tired and you're consuming those, you're going to the green smoothie bar and you're having a kale or a spinach lunch, thinking that you're doing good, you need to take a step back and just assess and ask some critical questions.
Yeah.
But it's also a little daunting, and people are self-righteous and they've been conditioned, right?
If you feel the same way about your diet that you feel about your hockey team, you need a therapist.
I used to play hockey and I grew up, right? Big athlete. But I no longer.
Like, go Oilers, go Carnivore.
Yeah.
No, it's not a religion, dude. It's fuel for your body. And the only thing that matters is, how do you feel when you're done eating, and 2 hours after, 4 hours after, and a week after, right? And what are the long-term effects of that nutrition? We're doing a better job of looking at very long-term effects. And we're understanding mechanisms of action in a way that's unimaginable 10 years ago. So we just have better data, and you can change things. It doesn't take very long. And I know so many people who are saying, well, I didn't have high cholesterol. Well, yeah, half of people who have heart attacks don't have high cholesterol. They have impaired mitochondrial function that leads to all sorts of autoimmune issues that leads to plaque.
Right.
Did you know that all of the soft plaque that causes most heart attacks, it comes from plants in the digestion system? It's a byproduct of fermentation in the gut. And they identified this through isotopes, 2 different studies. So what's going on is you're eating the wrong stuff. Your gut bacteria are disrupted because of that.
Yep.
And it's making the fat that makes the soft plaque. It's not butter in your arteries.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I'm pretty sure that butter lubricates your arteries when you eat it.
Yeah.
You think that's real?
Well, we're made up of our cells are all fat, right?
Yeah.
So, okay, let's go into data, because here we are at Upgrade Labs. This is why we're here right now. This is an incredible facility to help individuals
Yeah.
determine their data and look at their numbers in a different way.
And change it. Yeah.
Totally change it through feedback, right? And then let's go hormones and then data.
Hormones and then data.
Okay. Talking about the cottonseed oil, grapeseed oil, those are common. It's the stabilizer, the binder. That's the delivery.
Yeah, they call it an excipient. Yeah.
Now, are they there?
You're saying for injectable testosterone?
Yeah. Are they not in nature inflammatory, or are they structured in a way that, heat is the problem?
You'll also find sesame oil, which is an allergen, is a common carrier for testosterone. MCT oil would be the best carrier, but no one makes that I'm aware of.
Right.
So pharmaceutical companies have universally shot themselves in the foot by putting toxic stuff in their medicines that aren't the medicine. So they'll put lactose, which isn't really toxic, but it affects a lot of people, and weird food colorings and things, to the point that in about 2008, I launched a lab testing company in the US based on technology that someone invented for a big pharma company that proved one of their blockbuster drugs wasn't working because of the stupid stuff they put in with the drug.
Right.
The coloring agents were causing all the side effects, not the drug.
Why are they doing that?
Because they don't have a picture of reality that's real. They believe that it doesn't matter, so then they do it.
Yeah.
There's no reason to do that. It's just because it's how they've always done it. One of the more interesting examples of this is Elon Musk. Have you read his biography?
Not yet. It's on my Amazon list.
One of the things he did, and people can like him or hate him, whatever, but as a business person, he just walked through his manufacturing plant and said, why are we doing this? Why are we doing this?
Yep.
And especially actually at SpaceX, he found out that 90% of the things they were doing was because that's how it's always been.
Right.
And so well, then we won't do it anymore. I said, but that's not how it's done. He goes, well, it's how we're doing it. And he managed to make it possible to do things that we thought were impossible because we were doing unnecessary things. I'm actually the world's biggest fan of pharmaceuticals. I just want true data about what they do, and I don't want other crap in them.
Yeah.
So I'm on record as saying we are not going to extend human life by at least 50%, which is my goal, to live to at least 180, without the help of pharmaceuticals. Because we can carefully target things inside the cells. And some of them are shown to extend life.
Now,
so that what that means is all technologies are available and on the table for us, but we don't want things that are bad for us because we think they don't matter, even though they do.
Yeah.
It's, are we reality-based or are we story-based?
Right. So you specifically said that, I think it's a quote from you, that all men over 30 should be on replacement therapy.
I said all men over 30 should test themselves.
Got it.
And if they're low, their numbers are low, which they probably are. In fact, even men in their 20s now have grandpa level testosterone from 30 years ago. Like this is an epidemic in society. And it's really depressing because, and by the way, when I was 26, I had mine tested. When I was obese, my testosterone levels were lower than my mom's. We were going to the same doctor.
Wow.
And when you're low testosterone, you're low motivation and you're low joy because testosterone drives dopamine.
Right.
So you're sitting there going, God, why am I so stressed? Why am I so anxious? Like, why am I unhappy? Why do I feel unmotivated? Well, maybe it's not you. Maybe you have a hardware problem. Your body isn't making enough testosterone because we're sitting under freaking birth control lighting. LED lights are bad for hormone production. This is proven. You're eating oils that stop your body from doing what it's supposed to do. You never see the sunlight and you barely move. But if you just saw the sunlight and moved, is that going to fix it enough? Probably not, but it'll help. Oh, and plus you're putting these weird perfumes on. And especially we have teenagers now. Have you heard of scent maxing?
No.
This is like 14-year-olds buying $100 bottles of perfume to wear stuff that turns off their testosterone. And I'm to the point, someone walks in wearing Chanel No. 5. I'm like, is it okay to punch them? Because they're directly attacking my endocrine system. Like, this is not okay.
Yeah.
And if your Downy fabric softener and all that other stuff, if it's got fake scents in it, it is changing your endocrine system. And so are all the plastics in the environment.
Well, so people don't realize it. They're literally just raping their brain with those scents.
It's not okay. Like if I walked up to you and just like shined really really bright blinky lights in your eyes and shouted through a megaphone, you're doing that to my nose, right?
Yeah.
And you think it smells good. In fact, some of it does smell good, but it affects our brains and it affects our hormones. So bottom line is, unless you live in nature in a loincloth with lots of sunshine, which means out of Canada, unless it's in the summer, well, then you're not going to have enough testosterone to actually show up and make the life you want and to be the kind of person you're capable of being.
Okay.
That's why it matters. So hell yeah. And there's nothing wrong with using technology to have testosterone levels that make you feel joy.
So I came from a bodybuilding background, and I would consider that I abused it for the last 20 years, and I'm on my own path to fixing that and correcting it.
You said that you abused it?
Yeah.
Like Tren and stuff like that, or
Tren just for the shows.
Yep.
But I was a user from early 20s for the last almost 20 years.
So you probably didn't need it a lot of that time.
No.
Yeah.
And so now I'm at a point where I've accepted that I'm going to need a minimal amount.
Well, how old are you?
41.
You were going to need some anyway.
Okay. And I thank you, because that's encouraging. Now, my question is, if we are on this path and on this quest for longevity, I am under the impression that some of these testosterone therapies can shorten lifespan.
Which ones are we talking about?
Well, maybe it's an abuse or taking too much. What would you say is that magic number where, okay, if I'm 40, I'm going to be accepting that I'm going to be taking it for the rest of my life, once a week, once every 10 days. Is there consequences really, really long term?
Yeah. You'll live longer than all your friends, so you need to have younger friends. There's abundant evidence. I wrote about this in Superhuman.
There it is.
Well, there it is. It's one of the books, right? For both men and women, having adequate testosterone and other sex hormones as we age extends life and certainly extends health span. And there's a huge fear among women of not working. That was a crime against women because they were comparing non-identical testosterone from horse pee, which is
birth control.
Yeah, which is not helpful for women. Bioidentical estrogen and progesterone and the other sex hormones, including testosterone replacement for women, especially starting right at perimenopause, reduces the risk of heart attack and other things like Alzheimer's that women experience. And in men, it's the same thing. So if you want to be in that documentary about low testosterone called Grumpy Old Men, you ever see that movie?
I know the movie.
Okay. Well, that's
is that a documentary?
It's a documentary on guys of low testosterone.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So if you don't take testosterone, that'll happen. Now, you might be the 1 in 1,000. In fact, I know a couple of them who are between 70 and 80 who have testosterone levels of a healthy 30-year-old from 30 years ago. Most of them are incredibly good meditators. They practice things like semen retention, very conscious, and they live incredibly natural lives.
Amazing.
One of them lives, actually two of them live in cabins they built 50 years ago. And the other one is John Gray, the Mars and Venus guy. Okay. And I've interviewed him about it. And he's like, yeah, you're not going to make me ejaculate. He practices very, we'll say very conscious things like that. So frequent masturbation, frequent porn, and even just ejaculating too frequently as you age does lower testosterone and raise prolactin. Right. So have I been practicing semen retention since I published a year's worth of data on that? That was in my book, Game Changers. Yeah, that's a part of keeping your testosterone up. But if you're 25 right now, you're swimming in plastics. Yep. You don't get good oils in your life. You don't get enough sunlight. You have bad lighting that you and I weren't exposed to because it hadn't been invented yet. Then you've got unlimited porn. Like, no wonder you're a little depleted.
Yep. On the water and all that. I was chuckling because you'd mentioned grumpy old men. I saw a meme just this morning, of the debate 2 nights ago. And so it was a meme of the movie Grumpy Old Men when they were outside and they're like, what? What? Yeah. What do you mean?
Oh my God.
And they just went back and forth and they said this was the debate.
That's brilliant. I saw exactly 5 minutes of it, and that was all I needed to see.
So funny.
I went to this website, The Real Debate, which is Bobby Kennedy. He's like, oh, CNN and like the parties, they froze the most qualified guy I've seen out of the race. He was like, well, I just have a professional guy asking me questions and I'll answer the same questions. And like, look, lucid answers in complete sentences from a single guy. Who would have thought?
Who would have thought?
Yeah. But you'll notice, I think he's 70 and he can do more pull-ups than I can because I have a shoulder thing and he's ripped, right? And you see the difference between metabolic health.
Yes.
As you age.
Yep.
He's an example, whether you like his politics or not, of a healthy 70-year-old who's completely lucid, has wisdom, and has the energy of a young person.
Yeah.
Right. He's also spent, I talked about this, he spent 30 years or more actually doing trauma therapy around addiction. He's very open about it. So the reason you can't rattle him is because he dealt with his demons.
Well, and if we are in a society where a lot of people have not dealt with their traumas and their demons, and they're just passing it on to the next generation. And we could easily discuss psychedelics because there's a huge place for that.
My next book has a lot about psychedelics in it. And it's funny. One of the things I write about in that book is it's really straightforward. If you can be triggered, it means you're carrying a loaded gun. And
say that one more time, because that's powerful for the listenership. Please listen to this.
Okay. If you can be triggered, it means you're carrying a loaded gun. Now, that's illegal in Canada, by the way.
Being triggered or having a loaded
gun.
Right.
But it should be illegal to be triggered. Of course, that would be triggering.
I like that.
So here's the thing. If I can trigger you, it means you're not in control.
Yeah. It's not a your issue.
It means you're programmable.
Yep.
I can program you via your triggers.
Yep.
The whole point of biohacking is to build people who cannot be triggered because we have enough energy to think about stuff instead of being reactive.
Amazing. And that's ultimately your quest and your mission and your vision.
Look, I am fully aware that consciousness starts inside each single cell in the body and it rolls its way up from that, which means if we poison our cells, we poison our consciousness. When people come into Upgrade Labs and they make their metabolism work better, they have more energy. And I mentioned those F words before that all life does. We have fear, we have food, we have that other F word, then we have friend. And in humans, the fifth F word that I teach in biohacking is forgiveness. This is our process of letting go of grudges and evolving to a higher level. It's really hard to evolve if you can't afford good food and you're tired and run down and you just never have enough time to take a deep breath. So we got to have more power is what it takes.
What comes first? Sort of the chicken or the egg?
Consciousness or?
Well, in terms of making things simple for people to tap into that, right? We're here in beautiful Upgrade Labs. This is a place where people can, in real time, start to experience better energy through some of these modalities. Or is it sort of the nutritional components and got to change their diet first and then they can be in a position? How would you approach that?
Well, let's say I want to bake bread.
Okay. You want to bake bread.
Now, if I was a big pharma company, I would just say, well, there's only one cause of everything. So I baked the yeast, I baked the salt, I baked the flour, and I baked the water. There is no bread. Okay. And that's why there's just unnatural beliefs in big pharma around there being a single cause. It turns out everything requires a recipe, which is a combination of things that include timing and temperature and humidity and the right ingredients. It's not the same for all of us. So if you came into Upgrade Labs and you're eating a really standard, deep fried canola oil diet, maybe plant-based for added health.
For added health.
You're going to have to address that. Right. But if you're eating an okay diet, right, you're going to want to do the things here, but you want to do them in conjunction. So you don't have to eat a perfect diet, but if you eat a crap diet, you'll get less results. Right. And if you eat a perfect diet and you don't come into Upgrade Labs as often, you'll get amazing results. So they go hand in hand together. And that's why we talk with people about nutrition. And that's why the app that we're using and that is constantly under development actually looks at all of the data from your wearables and from your sessions at Upgrade Labs in order to make recommendations about the things you can do in your life that give you more energy. I don't want you to do more. Like swap out your moldy coffee that makes you jittery and have anxiety for a coffee like Danger Coffee that doesn't have mold in it, that has extra electrolytes. You're going to make coffee. Just make coffee that has more benefits and less of a downside.
Think about it. People are driving Mercedes Benzes and all these nice cars and luxurious homes and all that stuff, and yet they're driving through Starbucks and Dunkin' Donuts and Tim Hortons, and they're literally buying Byway quality coffee when they could easily buy some Danger Coffee. It's just another way to upgrade your life.
Well, thank you. I mean, I'm not here to sell coffee. I've sold a lot of coffee in my life, but it's just an example of a swap, right? You were going to eat breakfast. Maybe the low-fat granola is the peasant breakfast that you don't need.
Yep.
And maybe 2 eggs, which I used to say were affordable, but not in Canada anymore, unless you know a farmer.
Yeah.
Right. Or you have a chicken. So reality, you need to have a meal, eat the meal that gives you the most energy, that tastes good enough.
Yeah.
Right. And just those simple swaps. And here's another swap that's a little bit shocking. If I set a cigarette and a plate of French fries cooked in a mix of soy and canola and corn oil, would you smoke the cigarette or eat the French fries?
No one's ever asked me that question before. If I had a plate of French fries, deep fried in all of those seed oils, or a cigarette, I think I'd still lean towards the French fries.
Wrong answer.
Is it the wrong answer? That's right. I've seen the viral video of you talking about the cigarettes.
And it's not me just making this up. Smoking is really bad for you. We all know this. But the French fries cause 48 hours of profound inflammation throughout the body. The cigarette causes 8 hours, and nicotine stops Alzheimer's disease and feels good at least. So maybe you shouldn't eat the French fries or smoke the cigarette. What are you going to eat instead? And may I humbly suggest, if you're on the West Coast, sockeye salmon, it's like bologna and it swims around up there.
Yeah.
Right. Or in the middle of Canada, we have beef, right? For a reason.
Yep.
And if you're on the East Coast, we have more fish, right? Those are the kind of things you want to be eating.
Yeah. We do have the resources. Just gotta be a little bit creative, but it's out there. We have it.
And I want to bring up something else. And as a proud Canadian, do you know about the Canadian butter mafia?
I have some inclinations because I am a member of a cow share program, and he got raided.
Oh, yeah. The enforcement.
So I have an idea of where you're going, but go ahead, continue.
Well, there's a dairy quota in Canada, and it was purchased up by mafia families in the 80s. So they basically control dairy in Canada. And if you're wondering why it costs $14 or $20 for grass-fed butter.
Yes, it's literally $14.99 now.
Yeah. Why is there a tariff on that? A 300% tariff? Because of people who are mobbed up.
Interesting.
I mean, besides the guy in charge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's just one more reason that they're just really trying to make it harder for us.
That's an economic thing. A lot of it's economic.
Yeah,
and let's
course.
face it, if you're a government person, you think it's your job to decide how to feed the useless eaters in your population, which is how certain government people view their populations rather than servant leadership. Well, you're going to feed them peasant food and you're going to make as much money off it as you can. And the ultimate hack is big tobacco companies bought all the big processed food companies in the 80s and early 90s. And they've been using that operating system, which is tell people it's good for them and tell them the most addicting thing you can think of. Because that's where profits are highest. And it's our job as people to say, that isn't food.
Yep.
And like, this will sound weird, but people will say, well, meet me by the McDonald's. I go, there's a McDonald's here? I don't see McDonald's because there's no food there. There's nothing useful for me at a McDonald's. Yeah. Unless I'm looking for a bathroom, I might notice one when I'm driving by.
Sure.
Because I don't eat that.
It's just, that's right. It's just not in your registry.
Yeah. So when you look at the big food stuff and it has zero effect on your brainwaves, you're free.
Empowered. Totally.
Yeah.
I love that. Let's talk about one more time about Upgrade Labs. This is a state-of-the-art facility.
Yeah.
It's one of the coolest things that has happened in the fitness space, and it is still quite challenging a little bit to the typical bodybuilding approach and all that stuff, right?
Oh man.
And we could literally go on, but this is an opportunity for people to shorten their time under tension per se, their time in the gym, and they can benefit from condensed time, but working smarter, not harder. Right?
Yeah. Let's use this example. If you could sleep 12 hours a night,
Okay.
or 6 hours a night with exactly the same results, which one would you choose?
6 hours.
Okay.
I got lots of things to do.
If you could spend 8 hours a week, an hour a day, 7 hours a week, an hour a day of cardio and get a 2% improvement, which is actually how the numbers work out, come into Upgrade Labs, use our AI bike, and in 15 minutes a week, you'll get a 6% improvement.
It's crazy.
So no, sorry. I was wrong.
Say it
6
again.
times better.
Okay.
You get a 12% improvement instead of a 2% improvement in 15 minutes. So here's the deal. I'm willing to do hard work in the gym. Like I said, 90 minutes a day for 18 months. I'm not unwilling to work.
Sure.
I'm unwilling to waste time.
Yep.
Right. I will drive there instead of walking because it was 100 miles.
Right.
Why is that morally okay? Yet we're supposed to struggle in the gym. And as you age, you're going to find there's a lot of 50-year-olds who've been lifting for 20 years. I had a couple of them over for dinner last month at my house. Friends of people who work with me. And they're both like, man, I got to get both shoulders replaced. And they both have pot bellies. I said, we've never worked so hard to look this bad in our entire lives. And we're doing 6 days a week now.
Right.
They're overtraining. They have cortisol bellies.
Right.
Right. So, like, guys, go to a yoga class on Wednesday and lift twice a week and watch what happens to your gut.
Right.
And this, people hate hearing that because if you just build an identity of I go to the gym every day because I'm a good person, you're a good person whether or not you go to the gym. It's irrelevant. Like, did going to the gym provide the highest value of everything you could do?
Right.
If not, go play with your freaking kids and do something that gives you the results of the gym in less time.
Yeah.
And that's why I build Upgrade Labs, because I'm too busy to spend half my life on longevity and half my life on going to the gym. So we do things here that have nothing to do with the gym. As it turns out, results are in some small part, how much work did I do?
Right.
But it's more to the point, how quickly did I get a little signal into the body to change? And then how recovered and safe was my biology afterwards?
Right.
So we do brief stimulus, and then we put you on recovery technologies that let you recover more than you're supposed to. And your body goes, oh, there was a threat, some cardiovascular threat or some muscle threat, but now I'm safe and I've got so much energy. Let me just transform like that.
Yeah.
And that's why we can do a 12% improvement in your VO2 max in 2 months. But you can't do it by going for a run or getting on a treadmill for an hour a day.
Right.
That's 15 minutes. You brush your teeth for 15 minutes a week. I can do that, and I got better results.
Yeah.
So the equipment here for muscles, 3 to 5 times faster than picking up rocks or concentrated rocks into iron plates. No offense, I've also gone to the gym a lot.
Sure.
I've been a bodybuilder, not a competitive one, but I've spent a lot of time lifting. And on the cardio front, I used to have a Cannondale. I would ride like 20 miles a day in my early 20s because I was trying to lose weight. It doesn't freaking work, even though going for a bike ride's fun. Right. So all these things that I believed made me a good person, that I'm going to lean in. If you don't get the results and you don't get the results per minute, don't do it. So Upgrade Labs is here because we give you the data. Don't believe me. I have AI systems. We carefully design things. So, what's most important to you? Because you may be a longevity guy, and the person next to you may say, I want to get my sleep back. And then was like, I'm stressed all the time. I want to increase my cognitive function.
Sure.
All of those are tracks at Upgrade Labs. So we use AI and surveys to help figure out what's your most important goal. Let's hit that one first.
And this is the so inspiring thing is you've vetted and you've done this for yourself because you've been on your quest and you've been doing it for so many years.
I spent $13 million figuring out how to do this.
Yeah. And so you've paved the way for all of these new members and these new communities to just come in and do the stuff that you've already been doing for so long. And so you look at you are a product of your preaching and your practice.
And I was the 300-pound computer
300-pound
hacker, the guy from Jurassic Park 1, but a good guy. Like literally, I was. It's not even believable until you see my stretch marks.
I think just people are just still so self-righteous and they're scared. But again, there's a big shift. It's happening.
Just have more kale, you'll be fine. Keep doing what you're doing if it works. Except it doesn't work.
Right.
And it's that hard realization that you were wrong.
Yeah.
We don't like to be wrong. But if what you're doing works, then why don't you look and feel healthy?
Sure. Yep.
Yeah.
exactly.
Otherwise, something's wrong, and it's something you're doing.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's where the disconnect and the connection comes, where if we're able to just take a step back from some of these disconnections or the things that distract us, then we can at least tap into that and start to get an idea. 2 more points.
All right.
How does it feel, or how does it register that through your writings and teachings and all of your hard work and dedication so I'm a practitioner and I've incorporated many of your teachings into my modalities.
Thank you.
And I've passed them on to my clients and patients. You have not really single-handedly, but kind of single-handedly changed the scope of the world directly and indirectly, because there are so many professionals that have been learning from you, and they've been able to pass on your teachings to their clients and their patients. And then those people pass on those teachings to their families.
Oh, yeah.
And then to their children and their grandchildren. I'm sure you've thought about it, but have you thought about it? The global footprint that you've made, both directly and indirectly?
I just feel gratitude for that. I don't talk about it that much, but the amount of suffering that I went through as a young man, as a teenager, and there's like the physical pain, you know, I've had 3 knee surgeries and arthritis since I was 14, the obesity, the back pain, the brain that doesn't work, like getting rageful, just getting angry for no reason and just struggling with all that. Feeling like there's something wrong with you, feeling like my brain's not working. Like, what am I going to do? I don't want to tell anyone because, you know, like what? It's everywhere. If someone had just told me this stuff when I was a teenager, when I was 20, it would have saved me not just a couple $1 million. It would have saved me untold suffering. And I started this whole thing after I had a job. I was a VP at a computer security company. I made $250,000 a year with stock options. 2 young kids. And I thought, I'm going to write this blog. Only 5 people are going to read it, but at least they won't go through what I did. I didn't set up email capture. I didn't do any marketing stuff. I just put stuff out on Twitter, now X, but it was Twitter back then. and I just wrote the truth after studying for 15 years with elders, with people in their 70s and 80s reversing their age, who mentored me and taught me this stuff. And my goal wasn't to be famous. I had erased my identity. Like being private is actually a gift. And I said, all right, fine. I'm willing to be a public figure, but it's not my desire. I've already been in magazines for my tech career. It doesn't bring you joy.
Right.
I just wanted to, I wanted to give back, and I wanted to help people. And when I realized, wow, more than 5 people want mold-free coffee, I guess I got to make that because no one else will. Right. And then I started Bulletproof and got fired from the company a few years ago. And now I'm running Upgrade Labs and Danger Coffee and several other companies.
And all of your other projects.
Yeah. 40 years of Zen, my neuroscience company.
Yep.
And all these things. I just make stuff that should exist that I can't buy. And the fact that you're taking the knowledge, and I give the knowledge away for free. I mean, you buy my books, thank you, but I don't make money on books that matters. Like that's not how you make money. And the fact that you're sharing it makes me incredibly happy. Like that's what this is for. This is like the manual for being a human who knows how to manage yourself. The reality I've come to is that you ride around in this, bag of meat, and the vast majority of what's happening in the world around you is by design hidden by your body because your brain can't process reality very well.
Right.
We're not going to talk about it in this episode, but that's why people do psychedelics. That's why people do breath work and all this stuff is to be able to go in and experience things. But it's hard to do that. And if you get a car, it comes with a manual, but you don't get a manual for your body. This is ancient knowledge. Biohacking is just proving what we knew in Ayurveda or traditional Chinese medicine or one of hundreds of other ancient disciplines.
Yep.
But now we're discovering new things. And like, this is what it means to evolve as a human. So when you asked me about, the footprint or something, it's not because I think I'm a big deal. It's just because I suffered a lot and I don't want other people to do that.
You are single-handedly part of the inevitability of human evolution, marrying tech and health together. It's pretty cool. Pretty badass.
Thank you. And one little asterisk on that. Sometimes people say, oh, Dave, you're a transhuman. The transhumanism movement is around this transcending human biology. I believe that it doesn't make sense to replace your hardware until you've made full use of it. We barely know what our bodies can do.
Right.
And we had to tap into that. I have not a strong desire to replace my eyes with computer cameras. You would lose a lot if you did that. So I believe in the sanctity of my biology. I also believe in my right to do whatever the hell I want with it. I've had gene therapy to extend my life. And anyone who tries to tell you that they get to control how you eat, what you breathe, what you drink, or what technology you use to evolve, that person is acting in a way that supports evil. And that's how it is.
Yeah. I did a podcast with Dr. Tom O'Brien a few weeks ago, and he said, look with eyes that see, right? And hear with ears that hear.
Yeah.
One more question, two more actually, one more. Do you still see yourself as the 300-pound guy when you look at yourself in the mirror? Are there moments of body dysmorphia, or has that changed?
Not anymore.
Okay.
So when I lost the first 50 pounds, it was relatively easy. The second 50 took 10 years of understanding mitochondrial biology.
Yeah.
This is where most people go low carb. It's easy to lose half your weight.
Yep.
The other half will not go unless you really get it right. I remember I used to turn sideways in hallways to make space for people when I didn't need to anymore. Right. And I still remember the first
muscle memory.
Yeah. I remember the first time I saw my ribs, I was like, whoa. And so now I don't see myself as a 300-pound guy, but I get out of the shower and I see myself in the mirror. I'm like,
damn.
I look like a model. I have never looked this good in my life. And I'm just like, wow, that's incredible. And then I'm like, I still haven't figured out how to make 300-pound skin fit a 200-pound frame. So I still have, unfortunately, it's still hanging down.
Sure.
I have a little bit on the back. That
have you done any
like.
skin removal or anything like that? Or
I haven't done the surgery leaves a big scar.
Right.
I did
because it doesn't look like you need it, right?
I did a podcast. No, not up here. It's not too bad.
Yeah.
I did a podcast with a guy who does, his name's Dr. Rob Whitfield. He has a procedure called a no cut lift.
Okay.
And think of it like a reverse tattoo. Instead of injecting ink in micro holes, they pull out little tiny bits of skin. I removed 6 square inches from my low back without any scarring, without any incisions. But I would have to do that 3 more times to get rid of the skin that's left over.
Right.
So if I'm naked, there's a little bit of sagging in the back, and it's not because of wrinkles. It's because there's just too much skin, and I have profound stretch marks from being fat. I don't really mind those. In fact, I'm just used to how they look. But I'm I see myself, I'm like, holy shit.
Yeah.
It's just amazing. But I don't have that dysmorphia. I actually see myself as a shockingly fit, healthy person with a great body.
The reason why I say that is, and I'll just kind of somewhat conclude with that, is there's so much light at the end of the tunnel. There's so much hope for people that are overweight and they feel as though that there's no light at the end of the tunnel. There's no direction, but there is.
If I could do this, I promise you I was sicker than you are, and I was in worse health than you are. 15 years of antibiotics, strep throat every month when I was a kid and young adult, chronic fatigue, toxic mold poisoning, Lyme disease. Hell, I was bitten by a vampire bat and probably got an infection from that too, we think. Look at everything you could think of.
And you even had some behavioral abnormalities as well.
ADHD, Asperger's, ODD, which is oppositional defiant disorder. And some other things like that. I had auditory processing and visual processing things. So to reverse Asperger's syndrome was about a 15-year journey that starts with mitochondria and ends with reprogramming all of your senses. And that was a lot of work. And mostly it's because I don't like suffering.
You've got, so I'm going to direct the viewership and the listenership to your podcast, the Human Upgrade podcast, because there's a ton of episodes where you discuss that. Yeah. So if you want more information, definitely go to the Human Upgrade podcast. Listen, it's an amazing podcast.
Thank you.
There are moments of incomprehensible language from some of the experts.
I do my best to translate it.
Upgrade Labs, this is amazing. One of the reasons why we're here is you and I did an Instagram live in January because I am hosting now the second Canadian Biohacking Expo in a few more months. And we had you come at the expo, and it was amazing. Got to tell you, one woman watched that live.
Mm-hmm.
She signed up to work with me.
Mm-hmm.
We changed her life. She
Beautiful.
then signed up to Upgrade Labs in Utah.
Beautiful.
She lost a ton of weight. She's improving her cognition. And she actually won a meet and greet with you. And there's a photo of her.
Oh, yeah. I remember that. Yeah.
Pretty cool.
That's
So
amazing. That was your
just,
client?
It just goes to show that, you know, just even an Instagram live can impact people's lives. So thank you for that.
You're so welcome. And one of the important things in all of my books, if there's an understanding about the way our bodies or our minds actually work, there's something free you can do. There's something that's low cost you can do.
Yep.
And here's what the crazy billionaires are doing that it's an example of what's possible.
Yep.
And all of those technologies become cheaper over time.
Sure.
Biohacking isn't about money. It's about knowing what works better, right? So it's not an expensive thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes there's a reallocation of resources. If you take what you spend at restaurants and spend it on groceries, you can triple the quality of your diet.
Of course.
And cooking is actually kind of fun.
Yeah.
So there's stuff like that.
Sure.
But whatever the decision that anyone listening makes, I promise you it wasn't perfect. There's no such thing as perfection.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually what perfection means. It means you could always be better.
Yep.
I sometimes, if I'm at a restaurant and it's not busy, I'll say, "Oh, is that grass-fed steak?" And the waiter will say, "Yeah." I go, "Okay, was it grass-finished?" They go, "Yeah." I go, "Okay, was it raised by monks?" And they're like, "Yeah." I go, "Were they one-armed monks?" I'm like, "Yes." I go, "Were they left-handed?" Right? There's always another level.
Of course, you can
right?
always move the goalposts.
So,
right.
so don't worry about being
Yeah.
perfect. Are you getting results? Just be 80% in the right direction, and your body will handle the other 20%. So that self-judgment, the criticism and shame and all that, they're just obstacles. And I'm sure that I did something less than perfect today. I could probably list 25 things. I'm not thinking about them. I'd have to think about it.
Right.
I did them good enough that I've been standing here signing books and talking with people all day long. My brain's on, and I landed last night from a different time zone. I'm flying out tomorrow morning. I have a level of resilience I've never had in my entire life.
Right.
The calendar says I'm 50. The lab tests say I'm in my mid 30s. And if I can do it, anyone can do it.
Yeah.
Literally, I'm the worst case.
How do you want to conclude this interview? I'll give you the mic. You can close it off.
I would say, actually, it's a Henry Miller quote. He says, "The goal of life is not to accumulate power, but to radiate it." And it turns out your mitochondria, they make enough ATP for 6 seconds of life. And it's refreshing that often. If we turned off your production, you'd be dead in 6 seconds. So you cannot store that. You cannot save it up, right? But you get to choose how you radiate it.
Yeah.
And so your job, if you hear this and you're inspired, learn how to make more energy and learn how to do more good with it. So waste
Radiate
less.
it.
So there you
Radiate
go.
it. Yeah. I always conclude every podcast with this statement for the listenership and the viewership, and of course you as well. In life, we have, and we're presented many, many choices. And so thank you for choosing to be with us right now in this moment. I certainly enjoyed it. I hope that you got a lot of value from it. Dave, thank you for paving the way and being a living legend, a pioneer, a trailblazer. And thank you for your purpose in making a global impact. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Oh, you know what? Would you object to signing these books?
I can't sign books. It's $3. Of
Oh, and
course.
I've got something for you. This is freshly made cacao
Oh, wow.
that I made and harvested when I was in Costa Rica
Whoa.
a couple months ago. Sorry, there's no psychedelics in it, but this is ancient medicine.
Amazing.
So I was going to bring you a steak, but
Oh,
there's
wow.
probably no barbecue or anything like that.
It would have been a mistake.
Oh, so here you go. Enjoy that.
Oh, thank you. This
Thanks
is
so much.
awesome.
Thanks so much for
I
doing
appreciate
this.
it.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm happy to sign some
All right,
books for you.
there's the marker. There you go. thanks so much, Upgrade Labs, for doing this. Hey, guys. What's up? And then we're going to shoot you guys too, right? I think Karen wants to. Yeah. Cool. Okay, that wraps up this episode of the Gut Gang podcast. Thanks so much for being part of the Gut Gang community. And don't forget, if you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, rate, and even leave a comment. Your feedback fuels our growth. And also, here's something special. If you want more exclusive content, be sure to become part of the private Gut Gang members-only community, where you get to see behind-the-scenes bonus segments in my cold plunge and the sauna with each of the podcast guests. That's right. Part of the podcast series is having the guests hang out with me for the whole day at my place, biohacking, taking cold plunges, going in the sauna, even a coffee tasting where we hook up all the mics and the cameras and we shoot the entire experience. You definitely don't want to miss out on this action. So I'll see you over there. Gut Whisperer out.